Alright guys, so the next thing that we're going to do is go ahead and layer our quilt sandwich. In my previous video, I mentioned that I will not be using cotton batting as the batting. Instead, I'm going to use this old sheet here. Now I thought I had an old flannel sheet, but I couldn't find it, so I'm just going to do this one. And I'm also going to use fleece for the backing. Now feel free to use cotton batting and a cotton back if that's what you prefer. But for this particular quilt, I'm going to do it this way. Now also on my previous video, I got a comment that asked if I left the paper on the back of these blocks. The answer to your question is yes, I did leave the Pellon on the back here, but it's not paper. It's like a woven fabric that has glue on one side, and because some of these shirts are old and pretty thin, I wanted them to get more structure and more stability. That's why I use this Pellon. And it also comes in multiple different weights. For example, on my t-shirt quilt that I made, I used a heavier weight Pellon. I backed it with fleece, and I put no batting in between, and it worked out just fine. But that's for another video. So now I'm just going to take you over to my table over here and show you how to layer this together. Alright guys, so I'm going to layer this a little differently than you're probably used to. Now this is just my personal preference. I've done it with a couple other quilts before and I really liked how it turned out. So that's what I'm going to do with this one. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to sew my quilt top using a zigzag stitch down the seams to my batting, which in my case is my old sheet. Now this is going to be a throw, so it's going to be used quite a bit, and I just think it gives it more stability. So the first thing that I'm going to do is go ahead and lay my sheet down first. Alright guys, so I have my sheet right here, and this sheet just happens to have a print on it. Now some of my shirt fabrics are lighter in color, and I really don't want this print to show through. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to lay it face down on my table here. Now I'm just going to take some of these tablecloth holders here, and I'm going to secure this to the table, making sure that there's no wrinkles or creases or anything like that, and kind of stretching it out as I go. And since I only have 3 of those, I'll also be using one of these. The next thing that I'm going to do is go ahead and put my quilt top down. Just like this. Now you just want to go around and make sure that there's enough batting fabric to go all the way around your quilt top. Now this just happens to be a queen size sheet here that I have, so I know I have plenty. So now, using these bent safety pins, I'm going to go ahead and pin my top to the batting. I'm going to start right in the middle and smooth it out, and I'm going to put a pin about every width of my hand. Alright guys, so I have a vertical row here, all pinned together, and now, starting from the middle again, I just like to go out this way, forming a T, and then filling in the squares. Alright guys, so I have this all pinned together, and it happened to be about 1 pin per block. Now I'm also going to go around and just put a pin around every block on the edge here. And wouldn't you know it, I'm 1 pin short. But that's just fine. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and trim this sheet. Like I said, this is a queen size, so I know I have plenty of fabric here. So I'm going to trim this down and leave about 2 inches of the sheet hanging over the quilt top. Alright guys, so the next step that I'm going to do is I'm going to take this over to my sewing machine, and I'm going to sew with a zigzag stitch down every seam, and then I'm going to turn it around and go down these seams. Now, like I said, I just like doing this because I like the look of the zigzag on top, and I think it gives it more structure. Now, you definitely don't have to follow what I do. If you have a nice sheet, you can certainly use the sheet for the backing, the fleece for the batting, layer all three together, and do the same thing that I'm going to do here. You could stitch in the ditch, or you could just layer all three together and tie it together. When I'm done with my zigzagging, I will be tying the back onto this quilt, but like I said, I just like the look of the zigzag on top, and it kind of ties the whole quilt together. But feel free to do whatever you want. So I'll meet you over at my sewing machine, and I'll show you what to do. Alright guys, I have my quilt all rolled up here, and as you can see, this is a lot of quilt to manage. So I just kind of like to tuck it underneath me, or throw it over my shoulder, whatever feels comfortable to you. Now, like I said, I am going to be using a zigzag stitch, and I'm going to be coming right down the seam here. My length is about a 2, and my width is about a 4. So I'm going to start a little bit on the sheet here, and then I'm just going to sew. Now as I sew, I'm kind of pulling the fabric and making sure it's nice and flat, especially around the corners here where the 4 blocks come together. If you do have to stop, make sure you stop with your needle down. With this much quilt and the weight of it, it's very easy for your stitch line here to get all wonky. Alright guys, so that's one seam down here. Now I'm just going to take this off. I'm going to roll up this side until I get to the next seam. Now as you progress, you're going to have a bunch of fabric up in here, and sometimes it can be hard to manage. So what I like to do is I get about halfway done, flip the quilt over, and then start from that end and go in. That way you don't have all of this up in the throat of your machine. So once I get done with these vertical rows, I'll go ahead and do the horizontal rows, and I'll show you what it looks like when I'm done. Alright guys, so I have my top here attached to the sheet, and the great thing about using a zigzag here is even if your corners don't line up that great, the zigzag will cover that and you won't even be able to tell. So the next thing I'm going to do is go ahead and remove all of these pins, and we're going to layer our backing to this quilt top. So now I'm going to put my backing piece, which in my case is some fleece, face down on the table. Now I'm going to go ahead and secure these again with these tablecloth holders and the clamps to make sure that this thing does not move. Now I'm just going to go ahead and lay my quilt top facing up. Now you just want to go around your table and make sure you have enough backing that it will cover the whole top of the quilt here. And using these same bent safety pins that I used before, I'm going to start in the middle, smooth out the top, and pin all 3 layers together. Now this time I'm going to stick a pin in the center of each block. That's where I'm going to tie this backing to the top here. I'm also going to put a pin at the bottom of each block around the edges. Now the way I'm going to tie this together is I'm going to have the knots on the back. Traditionally, most quilts have the knots on top, but I don't want to see them on top. I also want these pockets still to be functional, so I'm going to stick 2 pins in here, and when I'm tying it together, I'm going to skip this pocket till the end. Alright guys, so I have this all pinned together once again. And like I said, you don't have to do what I'm doing. If you just want to layer all 3 layers together and not do the zigzag on top, then you can just get right into tying this together. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to flip this over and roll it up. Alright guys, now it's time to get tying. So I'll bring you in a little closer and show you how it's done. Alright guys, so I'm going to be using this crochet thread here that I got at the Goodwill for 99 cents. But you could also just use yarn. And I'm going to be using a needle that's called a ribbon needle. It has a really large head right here, and that makes it easy to get this crochet thread through there, or your yarn if you're using yarn. So I'm just going to cut a length of crochet thread here. I'm going to try to thread it through this eye here. Now I'm going to put a tie in each of these pins here. These ones around the outside are the perimeter, but I know this one right here is in the center of the block. And I can feel the pin, it's right here. So I'm just going to go just a hair over. I'm going to stick my needle in. Make sure you go through all 3 layers. And ideally you want about 1/4 to a 1/2 inch stitch. I like to check underneath to make sure I went through all 3 layers. So now you just want to tie it together. So I'm just going to take this thread and wrap it around twice. And give it a pull. You don't want to go really snug right here because it'll make it pucker on the front. Now take the opposite thread and go around twice. And you want to pull that one snug. That's a nice secure knot. Now just clip your threads here. Leave about 1/4 to a 1/2 inch tail. And just move down. Now if you can see right here, there's 2 pins. That means there's a pocket there. And since I don't want to tie these pockets closed, I'm just going to skip this one till the very end and just move down to the next pin. Alright guys, here's my next pin. So I'm just going to eyeball it and try to stay in line with this one. I'm going to take a stitch. Check to make sure I went through all the layers, and I did. I'm going to pull it through, wrap the string around once, twice, and then do the same thing with the opposite thread. And pull that one snug. And just clip your threads. Now I'm going to do that to every block, so I only have 46 more to go. Alright, so I have my regular blocks all tied together here, so I'm going to go back and I'm going to do the pockets. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stick my hand in the pocket and make sure that it doesn't go all the way through. Like I said, I want these pockets to be functional. So I'm going to first take out this pin here. And then I'm going to stick my needle in. Put my hand in the pocket. And then come back out. And then just tie it like normal. Just like that. And now you can see I can still use the pocket and stick my hand in there. That's a great feature that I like to put into these Scrappy quilts. I'll finish up the rest of these pockets, and I'll show you what it looks like when I'm finished. Alright, so I have this all tied together, as you can see. And I went ahead and removed all the pins except for the ones I had on the very edge here. Now in the next video, I'll show you how to trim this up and how to bind it. Now I hope you give this video a try. If you like my videos and want to see more of my videos, go down below and hit the big red subscribe button and give this video a big thumbs up. If you have a question about this video or any of my other videos, or would just like to leave a suggestion for a future upcoming video, leave me a comment. Feel free to share this video across your social medias. And as always, thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.